Greetings and welcome to another episode of Pop's Collection. I'm Ron Tweedy. Joining me is Pops, and today we're going to be taking a look at 1995's Batman Forever.
Batman Forever. As what it Sandlot was, where they said forever. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Surprised when you suggested this, but I was kind of all for it. So I'm not really sure how I feel about this. Is still part of the Tim Burton four-movie series, right? Or no?
I do not consider this a part of the Tim Burton thing, even though he was a producer on this film. This is strictly a Joel Schumacher film. He's the one
it's
that's in the
definitely a
director's chair.
Schumacher film.
So it's not, I don't consider it as a part of the same thing. It's not Michael Keaton, and the look of it is completely different than the Gotham that we saw in the first two films.
Well, yeah, as a matter of fact, I kind of took a time to just kind of make a list of things that we can talk about this. I have mixed feelings about it.
Yeah.
It actually came out June 16th in 95.
Right.
It got released on VHS in October of 95. So,
right.
4 months later, it didn't even get out on DVD until 2009. So
right.
I'm guessing maybe VHS was the only thing available at the time, or
in 95. Yeah. I mean, I think you might be off by, a couple years before DVD was really ubiquitous.
Right. And actually, my copies are ones that you bought me for Christmas that came in the 4-movie set.
Okay. Yeah. And
you gave me 1 year.
Yeah, and obviously I have a lot of memories around the VHS version because I've probably watched that about 100 times. So one summer. Yeah.
Well, interestingly enough, looking at it fresh yesterday,
yeah,
I could see it only had $100 million budget, which I guess was a lot at that time.
It is, yeah.
But it actually broke its first weekend. It made over 52, almost 53 million its first weekend.
Okay.
And it overtook at the time Jurassic Park had the highest weekend.
Yeah.
And it actually grossed that, and it was actually the highest grossing film in 95. Hard to believe. Even did better than Batman Returns, which that's one of the things I'm mixed about,
Sure.
Because in my eyes, we have, again, another Batman. We've gone through the Batman that did the serials, then Adam West,
yeah,
then Keaton, and now Val Kilmer.
Right.
And it has to make you wonder that Keaton read the script and he turned it down. Maybe that should have told us something, but it still did well.
I think that actually might more have to do with the fact that Tim Burton wasn't in the director's chair. I think that because, Michael Keaton's worked in a lot of other Tim Burton films, like I'm thinking specifically Beetlejuice, and
yes.
So that I think might have more to do with the fact that he just instead of just the script, and the final product does have a lot of things that I think are missing in it, because the other thing that I didn't mention earlier but I think is relevant is that I did read the young adult novelization of the book of the movie when I was, younger. And so
right.
For me, a lot of the seeming plot holes or things that didn't really seem to fit actually make a little bit more sense. For instance, the movie itself originally doesn't, it starts in Arkham Asylum where, Two-Face is busting out of that place. And so, instead of just kind of jumping into the action with Two-Face robbing a bank. So to me, I think
Right.
there's
You mean the novel
yeah,
started with him busting out of
yeah,
Arkham.
yeah, and you can actually see that in a couple other things. The video game adaptation of this film also starts in Arkham, which we only see Arkham at the very end of the film.
Yes,
So
that's true.
uh,
Now, the cast itself,
yeah,
first of all, we had Val Kilmer as
yeah,
Batman, and
right,
then we get Chris O'Donnell
right.
as Dick Grayson. Now, he kind of was a believable teenager. What do you think?
No, not at all.
You
I
th-
mean, he might be a believable 19-year-old. You could make that
yeah.
case, but
Okay.
obviously, when you're thinking about Batman and Robin, and I do think that. So I believe that Tim Burton's vision of Batman was based on Frank Miller's Dark Knight, right? That was kind of his source
Yes.
material that he used. I believe that Joel Schumacher's source material that he used was almost entirely the 1960s Batman TV series.
Um, I kind of felt a little bit like that. And believe it or not, I have to tell you this. The movie was just a little over 2 hours.
Right.
They cut out 40 minutes
Yeah.
of extras in there that actually would have made the movie a lot darker.
Okay.
So that's why see what you mean by it. The 60s version, it kind of a little bit lighter.
Oh, it's a hundred
Uh,
percent lighter than Tim Burton's vision.
oh,
It's like somewhere in between that and the TV in 1960s Batman.
I do have to say though that the choice of villains in this,
Uh huh.
Tommy Lee Jones was definitely just like right off the comic book pages. His makeup and everything. Would
Yeah.
you agree?
Yeah. I think that was his performance. Actually, is really good. He's one of those actors where you really like his yelling voice. Kind of like Jeff Bridges we talked about in the Iron Man film,
Yes.
and his yelling is there's something I don't know musical about it, I guess almost. And so I think that was a good choice. Although I would have been interested to see how the other Harvey Dent in the Michael Keaton films would have eventually become Two-Face, which was Billy D. Williams in the first Batman film.
Yes, yes. Well, we got actually there was Pat Hingle,
Mm-hmm.
which played Jim Gordon. He played that character. It flowed through all the four movies, and the same thing also with Michael Goff playing
Alfred.
Pennyworth,
Yeah.
Alfred. He played those in all four movies.
Yes.
So that give you some stability.
Sure.
And interesting was Drew Barrymore and
Yeah.
Debbie Mazar doing
Yeah.
Sugar and Spice.
Right. Right.
I almost didn't recognize Debbie with the makeup that she had on,
Right. Yeah. Yep.
But she did a real good job, I thought.
Yeah.
My mixed emotions come with Jim Carrey.
Yeah.
I like him. He's pretty funny. But this is the year after Ace Ventura and The Mask, which, by the way, is another comic book movie that we could do.
Oh. Okay. Yeah. The Mask. Yeah.
So I mean, but I wouldn't recommend it right away.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe down the way a little bit. But also Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey was also in Kick-Ass 2.
Okay.
And of course, we know he played Dr. Robotnik for Sonic. So
That's right.
He's done a lot of comic book stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't know what to think about. I felt almost like it was an Ace Ventura Mask performance.
Sure. Well, that's the thing. I think, as a kid, I thought, his comedy, his style was extremely funny, and I couldn't get enough of Jim Carrey. As an adult, I have like the exact opposite. I can barely stand him. So, you know,
Well, I'm wondering if it has to do with the time frame and
Maybe.
because he has done some serious roles,
Sure. Yeah, yeah.
and I guess he's done them very well. We had this conversation before about Will Smith. You felt in the
Uh,
beginning that a lot of his parts seemed like Fresh Prince.
right. Yes. Yeah.
So, and I, when I was watching this, I thought almost that it's kind of like Robin Williams, same style.
Huh. A little
I've
bit.
never thought of that before, but once I started watching it, I started feeling like that's kind of the way Robin Williams addressed his lines and,
Yeah.
told his jokes. So
Yeah.
if you think about it,
Yeah.
it does seem pretty close. And if you would watch Mork and Mindy,
Yeah. No,
it's
no, no, no.
almost,
Yeah.
it's almost the same thing on that.
Yeah.
Uh, how did you feel about Nicole Kidman, Dr. Chase Meridian? She really, in the comics, doesn't, she has a very, very minor part,
Does she? Okay.
Yes, you hardly ever see her,
Well, I mean, look, you think about the love interests that Batman, at least in the movies so far, has had. You had Vicky Vale in the first film, so photojournalist. You had
Yes.
Selena Kyle in the second film, who was, Catwoman slash an executive assistant, and then you now have a psychologist, which it makes sense to have her in the film, but unfortunately, I think where the film kind of really drops the ball is around Bruce Wayne's um, guilt of his assumed guilt of his parents' death, and it's not really explained in the movie at all what was going on there. He gets these flashbacks of repressed memories, and he feels responsible for his parents' death. We don't actually ever are told in the film why he felt that way. And so, the guilt of him feeling like he's responsible for the Grayson's death brings back the memory that he feels responsible for the Wayne's death. And we, like I said, we don't really get to feel why he actually feels that way, why he's responsible for that.
Right, which is actually the next point that I thought we should discuss. We cast, and then next I thought we would talk about the story a little bit.
Please, go ahead.
We did get this was basically a Robin origin story.
Yeah.
Um, and in this story, Two-Face is kind of responsible for it.
Yes.
Which I don't believe that that's the way it is in the comic.
At least not the original. Right.
Right.
They might have reimagined it to include a bigger villain, but it was just random burglars that were responsible for the death of the
Yes,
Graysons.
exactly.
Yeah.
And I don't remember if they all fell to their death. And then Bruce, in the goodness of his heart, is going to take the young lad in so he doesn't have to go to social services.
Right. Yeah.
He definitely looked too big to have to go to social services,
Well, yeah. I mean, he drives. Number one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that you're right. Like, but the question is like who would have been a better in 1995? Who would have been a better choice? I don't know the answer to that. Like you'd probably want to go with somebody younger. And I know in the first film, the original intent was that if they were to incorporate Robin, they would have I think Marlon Wayans, which is a very interesting choice.
That would have been very interesting. Um, but I could see that through most of the comics and the animated movies.
Yeah.
Robin is a lot younger.
Right. Right. Right.
Chris O'Donnell is more Nightwing material.
Sure. Yeah. Which he actually does suggest that as one of his names, and I'm like,
yes,
okay,
he does.
I
which
see what you did
I
there.
like that.
Yeah,
that was
one
of the positives in the movie.
Yeah.
And then my next thought was the Riddler and his basic origin.
Right.
Working for Bruce Wayne, and he now goes to this like little house that's maybe in an attic or somewhere. It's hard to tell,
Yeah.
but he's got some kind of a wish machine
Yeah.
with question marks and a hat. I don't think I've ever seen anything like that, but
Yeah.
I'm thinking it's plausible.
Yeah.
I mean, usually you see him like a sultan or something
Right. Right. Right.
in those machines, but I guess he had the long beard, so or not long hair. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
had long hair, so I kind of thought that they tried to make that work. Some of the things that they did in this movie, I felt like they cut corners,
Okay.
in the story. Uh, the next thing that I wanted to talk about, but I'm not ready to go there yet, will be the vehicles.
Okay.
But as far as the storyline goes, and when we got the Robin origin,
Yeah.
we saw Edward Nigma just like affixed to the television, eating popcorn like it's action movie
Right.
or something.
Yeah.
So you kind of get his psychoticness there.
Yep.
Um, I'm not sure that it went in the right direction with a mind control thing for the TV,
Yeah.
but maybe so, I guess,
Yeah. Well, I'm sure there's some other obscure villain that just tried to control Gotham City via TV. There's probably some other random obscure villain somewhere that they could have used as a canon, from a canon perspective.
Right,
But
right,
you
maybe
know,
so.
'cause, I mean, this is the same Batman that had villains like Calendar Man. I mean, come on, you know.
True, very true.
But yeah, but to me, I think the where the story is the weakest, like I said, is that he says he feels responsible for his parents' death. What you don't, what the movie doesn't show is that it shows very briefly. Part of his memories was finding his father's journal. In the book, he actually reads the journal, and it's set. Thomas Wayne records that Bruce insisted on going to the show that night instead of another thing that they were going to be doing. And so he thinks because, if it wasn't for Bruce insisting to going to that particular place, they wouldn't have gotten robbed, they wouldn't have gotten killed, right? That's why Bruce feels responsible for their death. What happens in the book is later on he finds out it wasn't just Bruce's decision, it was also Martha saying as well that she didn't want to go to the original function as well. So he doesn't find that out until much later in the film, and then he realizes that he's not ultimately responsible for his parents' death, and therefore he's able to kind of help guide, uh, you know, Dick Grayson through, dealing with death of the parents and stuff like that. So that completely is not addressed at all in this film. So yeah, it's, I think, a lost opportunity, but again, like you said, this movie was over 2 hours already, so it's like, how bloated are you going to make the film? I don't know.
Right, and it might have been part on the cutting floor. I, and that's the thing. I like you say, a missed opportunity because I felt like they were going to go there.
And not only that, but there were things that were completely superfluous. Like there was the one scene where Two-Face is just kind of like wreaking havoc somewhere, and then Batman stops him, and then you have the big stunt where the Batmobile drives up the side of the
Oh,
building.
yes, yes.
Like, to me, it's like, why did that even? It had like sort of no purpose in the film at all.
No, and they probably could have given you some more meat
Yeah,
with something that's on the cutting floor than that
yeah,
particular. It absolutely made no sense.
yeah. And before we move on to the other thing, I do think we need to go back to the casting for one thing. There's a blink and you'll miss it role of a very important person to the MCU. In the
Assistant number two.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So we have the legendary John Favreau making a very brief appearance.
We're talking really, really brief. I
Yeah,
mean,
blink and
you
you'll miss it.
almost miss it.
Yeah. I missed it the first time, and we were watching the credits. I was like, John Favreau's in this, and it's because
Yeah.
he's barely in it. But
Yes.
given who he is and what he's done since then, it's kind of interesting to see. Back in '95, he was you know he's
Oh,
still trying to work it.
yes.
So
Yes, definitely. He is, writer, the Book of Boba Fett. He wrote some of The Mandalorian, a lot of The Mandalorian, did some directing.
yeah,
So he's been doing a lot lately.
sure,
But back then, like you say, assistant number two was all he got for his,
right,
not even a name.
right,
But yeah, there were there was so much potential in the acting that, as a matter of fact, some of the critics
yeah,
had suggested that the only saving grace of this movie was Tommy Lee Jones and Jim Carrey.
yeah.
Uh, so Val Kilmer's performance as both, we had this discussion about the Batman Begins trilogy,
Yeah,
how that he was a good Bruce Wayne, maybe not Batman.
yeah. I think that Christian Bale is both the best Bruce Wayne and the worst Batman.
Absolutely.
So
I would agree with that. Val Kilmer, on the other hand, I don't think he can credit good at either one. You
I don't
know,
know. He was fine. You know,
yeah, he was okay, but you got to remember, think about it this way. Let's say that it's 1995 and we're just watching it,
yeah.
and we've already seen Michael Keaton portray Batman.
Okay.
So now you have this guy who, in my opinion, the way he portrayed him uh, lacked a lot of the personality that Keaton brought to the role.
Agreed.
So it kind of just fell flat to me.
Okay.
And then he does the Christian Bale thing and, all right, I'm Batman. So I
It's
kind
it's
of,
not it's not like that. It's not as bad as that.
well, but it's close to it.
Yeah.
It's like he tried to change his voice, but you know, I so wished I liked that they had the two villains. I actually liked the ending part with Harvey and them in the shaft.
Yeah, that was cool.
That was a good part. And I felt that I thought about it so far. One of the villains in every one of the movies has died.
Right.
So no more Joker, according to this, no more Penguin, and now no more Two-Face.
Right.
You know, we get uh, Jim Carrey still alive. I guess it was in his contract he wasn't supposed to die. I don't know, but anyways, anything else about the story that you want to discuss?
No, like I said, I think it was kind of the final product is not very good. Yeah. So that's that.
Okay, good. Then I want to move on to the vehicles. We
Yeah.
got a different Batmobile
Very different.
and actually a different Batboat and a different Bat plane.
Sure.
Uh, I was thoroughly disappointed in the Batmobile.
Yeah, it's not very good.
I think that they tried to go off of the animated series
No.
with the fin the way that it was.
No, it's nothing like that.
You don't think so?
No.
Well, the rest of it's not, but I just thought that particular part. What really bummed me out about it, I
Yeah.
guess, was seeing it drive down the road and it shaking back and forth
Yeah,
like
it's kind of
this.
stupid.
I thought that's awful. And um, using the same set, which is actually later on down the road, you see the Batmobile driving down the street, then next time he's on the road, he's driving down the same street, and then
Oh.
we do
I,
that scene with
I didn't even notice that.
yeah, oh yeah, it's like they really cut money on some of the landscape, but we didn't get to that yet.
Yeah,
What did you think about the plane?
it's fine.
Yeah.
Nothing really to write home about. I always liked the design of the ones in the Michael Keaton films, the best out of the movies. I think
Well,
that.
it looked more like the symbol
Yeah, yeah,
in the light,
yeah.
which was kind of what they went for, I think.
Right.
Uh, I don't know why people feel like that they have to do this every time and re envision them. You know, the ones that are in the um, Batman Begins trilogy are totally, more like military vehicles than they are
Right.
envision.
But I think that there's a in universe reason for that. They made a justification of why that was. The fact that Wayne Enterprises was in, had a lot of military contracts, so it makes in universe sense that those vehicles would be that way. You don't get any of that explanation here.
Correct. And you know what? Now that you mention that, millionaire doing things for the military, playboy, boy, sure reminds me of a Marvel guy that does the same thing.
Right. Who who
Uh,
who who was created, 30 years after Batman. So,
that's true. That's true. But I don't ever remember a story where Batman uh, company was building things for the military. So, anyways, uh, yeah, vehicles, and really nothing special for the Riddler or for Two Face.
yeah.
So, not real impressed with it. How about the special effects for this
Uh
movie?
totally fine. When it comes to the practical stuff with explosions and stuff like that, I didn't see anything that took me out of it, which is, good thing. The special effects around the box device is interesting. I did like how they were able to squeeze in a couple of Warner Brothers Looney Tunes as a demonstration. That was a nice little inclusion, given that Warner Brothers owns Batman. So it's
Absolutely,
that
yes.
was good. That was good.
Yes, the that was really the only special effects that I thought were interesting was how they
Yeah,
were sucking the power of everybody's brain and stuff like that.
yeah,
Um, that was the rest of it to me was basically average.
yeah,
Okay, so the cityscape,
yeah. I think to me that's the most disappointing. Um,
absolutely.
the interesting thing, at least in my opinion, is that when it comes to the Tim Burton films, the only place where you see a significant amount of color is in the villains. At least in the first film, like the Joker is the only one who actually has color. Everything else is dark blacks and grays,
Right,
including
correct.
Batman. And here there's color everywhere, lots of color, and so to me that's also an homage back to the 1960s Batman, where it was very similar to that. So,
Yes,
like I said, it's not like it's out of place per se, but from a preference standpoint, I obviously prefer the Dark Knight Gotham as opposed to the you know 60s Gotham.
right. Adam West Gotham, or
Which is not to say that's bad; it's just a preference thing.
right. It's a difference,
Right.
and if you I there's a certain group of Batman comics that do a much lighter version of
Oh, sure.
Batman, and then there's a group of comics where he technically just goes out at night, so you have a much darker version.
Well, I mean,
Both being good.
Yeah. Well, Batman's been all sorts of places. There was a whole couple of decades where he was a sci-fi story. Back in the 50s. So, it's not like anything's unprecedented per se when you have someone who's been around. You know,
Yes, I
80
mean it's
years.
over 85, I think
Yeah.
now, almost,
So,
or
you know,
somewhere around there. Um, yes, to me the landscaping was disappointing.
Yeah.
Um, and the ending of the movie,
Uh huh.
where we finally get to see Arkham.
Yeah.
What your vision of Arkham there? It's
I don't know.
you really didn't get a lot.
No, no, you didn't. And I don't know. To me, it's like when I always think of Arkham, I always think of the Batman game Arkham Asylum, where they really did explore the entire facility,
Yes,
and so nothing's going to be able to top that for me.
I would agree. Yes,
So
definitely. Although we haven't uh, reviewed Arkham Assault yet, which is a animated, which you might like. I might have to bring that up, but next time we're together.
okay,
Uh, okay, so we're in agreement about the cityscapes, landscape,
yeah,
so be. The next thing I thought we'd talk about was the credits. One of
okay,
my favorite part of the movies.
okay.
Yeah, Kiss from a Rose.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. That actually is one thing that we probably should mention is that I think this in this case, I'm trying to remember. This might have been one of the first films, at least in my memory, where the soundtrack was almost overshadowed or overshadows the film, or just as successful. I mean, the you had that song, a lot of other songs as well. It was
Oh, there's quite a few
yeah.
songs that
So
really kept me in the movie,
yeah,
you know? And sometimes that'll do that,
yeah. So
but
so I'll say that the soundtrack is good. The score to me though is a less than. It's not Danny Elfman.
no, it's not.
And so to me it's not, it doesn't have the same vibe as the other two
No, it
films.
does not.
So
I would totally agree with that. Um, however, uh, that is, I love that song by Seal. So,
yeah, it's a good song.
yeah, so
Wasn't written for the movie. It came out on his
no,
'94 album. So
yes, exactly. But it was one that when I heard it, I I really like it because I'm trying to learn how to sing it and I can't sing that high.
yeah,
So it's a tough song for me, but
yeah,
I've listened to it quite a lot to attempt it. But
yeah,
uh, one positive of the movie for me was that of the credits.
yeah. No, it's fine.
Yeah, good songs. Okay, so anything else redeeming or not redeeming that you want to discuss about this movie?
No, I mean it's a movie that I've seen 100 times. Like so, um, it's mixed. My reaction's mixed to it. You know, so
Again, like I said, I felt that I had some mixed emotions about it also.
yeah,
So, if we are going to give it a rating, which we got to, of course, um, I'm gonna. I think what I'll do is, like I said, the critics didn't treat it too well.
yeah,
Actually, there was one group that gave it an A minus,
yeah,
but most of them were, just above average, which is kind of where I'm leaning.
yeah.
It's like maybe a 5.5,
Okay,
maybe a 6, but I'm going to say, it is just above average.
yeah,
I just don't know how to feel about Jim Carrey. I've seen that, like you said, so many times,
yeah.
and uh, this time when I saw it, I just was thinking about either Robin Williams or the Mask Ace Ventura. And I'm thinking like, wow, that's the exact same way he portrayed those guys.
Uh huh.
So
Yeah.
that's where I'm going, 5.5.
Okay. Yeah, I would give it a 6. Like you said, it's above average. I think some of the other pieces around it, if I do think that there is a better film in there somewhere. We just won't really see it, and I don't even know if the better film is even in the extra 40 minutes of footage. Uh, I think it's more about execution to me that makes it a weaker film. So, um, yeah, that to
Right.
me
Well,
is
I do have to say, uh, when we got the Zack Snyder version of the Justice League,
uh huh.
I do have to say that the version, even though it's over 4 hours, the
Yeah,
story was much better told than the original version that got cut
yeah,
up. So
yeah,
there's a possibility there that there was a good story in there.
yeah.
Just didn't have a good editor, maybe.
I'm not convinced. Like, I mean, I think the stories could be saved, but when it comes to the choices that they made for the production, the
The
aesthetics,
style.
the style, the actors. Like, I don't know if you could have had Jim Carrey play it differently. At least not in 1995. So, you know, to me, I think that things got off on the wrong foot way before the story. Like like the fixing the story would not change the Batmobile looking the way it did.
No, that was totally designed by the company that they chose to use.
Yeah.
And the same thing with the boat,
Right.
which the boat to me was the closest to the original,
Yeah.
but still wasn't perfect.
Right.
But I'm going to say I would be interested because I heard that they were looking at different actors to play Batman once Keaton
Yeah.
decided not to. I'd be interested to find out who were their other choices and why they chose Val Kilmer as opposed to them.
Yeah.
Because like I said, I feel like to me his performance was a little flat for me.
Yeah. I
He
don't know.
just
He's fine.
he just felt so not animated, just very dry. I didn't see a lot of excitement there,
Sure.
or a lot of emotions. Let
Okay.
me say that. Let me
Okay.
put it that way.
Okay.
Okay, so we got it 5.5 and a 6.
Yeah.
And I know we have to finish it up,
Yeah.
which I don't know if we'll get to that next week or not, but
Yep.
we'll have to just wait and see.
Yep. We'll figure it out. All right.
All
So
right, sounds great.
all right. Well, thank you all for tuning in for another episode of Pop's Collection. Feel free to subscribe to our YouTube channel, like us on Facebook, and all the other social media stuff. And we'll see you next week with something else. Goodbye and God bless.
Goodbye. God bless and tell your friends.